Hey, what's up everyone? I hope you all are doing well. This is Jack from byprogrammers.com and welcome back to a brand new episode of Let's Code React Native. In the previous episode, we managed to build both the sign in and sign up screens. On top of that, we make use of multi animations to switch between these two forms, which I personally think that it was quite fun and interesting. Now in this episode, we are going to take a look at how we can build the scan camera screen as well as the scan QR code screen over here. Alright, now with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so we are going to continue from where we left off. I am going to first create an empty home screen so that whenever I click on the login button over here, I will be redirected to an empty home screen, and from there, I can then navigate to the respective camera screens over here. Alright, so within the screens folder, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to name it as home. Alright, and within this home folder, I'm going to create a new file called index.js file. Alright, and over here, same thing, I'm going to import from React. I'm going to import from React Native. Since it's going to be an empty screen, so I'm going to just import view. Alright, and over here, I will then create the home functional component. So constant home followed by the arrow function. And we are going to return an empty view for now. And don't forget, we need to export default home like that. Alright, next, I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to navigate to the screens index.js file, and over here we are going to import the home screen. Alright, like that. Over here it's going to be home, and we need to export it over here. Save it. Next we are going to navigate to the app.js file. Over here we need to import the home screen, right? And we need to include the stack screen over here. This is so that we can navigate to the home screen. Alright, save it. Next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to navigate back to the off man screen. And from here, I'm going to search for the login keyword. Alright, and whenever I click on this login button, I am going to navigate to the... Oops, I need to import navigation over here. Like that. Navigate back to the login. Alright. Now, whenever I click on this login button, I'm going to navigate to the home screen, right? Save it. Let's see if it works. Perfect. Okay, now for the home screen, we will only render a text button that allows us to navigate to the camera screens, because our focus for this episode will be entirely on the camera screens over here. Alright? So navigate back to the home screen. The first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to import like that. I'm going to import from components, and I'm going to import text button like that. And over here within the container view, I'm going to render the text button. So the label is going to be scan like that. And for the container view, I'm going to give it a bit of styling. Alright, so flex is going to be 1 and a line item is going to be center. Alright, save it. Oops, I need to set the justify content to center as well. Alright. Okay, cool. Now that we have the text button in place, next we can then proceed to work on the camera screens over here. Alright, so go back to your source code, and within the screens folder, I'm going to create a new folder called scan product. Okay. And within the scan product folder, we are going to create a new file called index.js. Alright, same thing over here. I'm going to import from React. I'm going to import from React Native. And for this, we need view, we need text, we need image, we need touchable opacity, and also we need linking. Alright, and after this, I'm going to import from components. And for this, we need the icon button component as well as the text button component. Alright, and after this, we need to import from constants as well. Like that. Alright, and for this, we need colors, sizes, fonts, icons, constants, and images. Alright, and after this, we can then proceed to create the scan product functional component. So constant scan product followed by the arrow function, and we are going to return something. Don't forget, we need to export the default scan product over here. So for the scan product screen, I'm going to return an empty container view for now. Alright, so save it. Same thing, we need to navigate to the screen's index.js, and over here we need to import from scan product, and over here we need to import scan product, and of course we need to export it over here. Save it. Alright, after this we can then navigate to the app.js file. Same thing, we need to import the scan product screen, and we need to add a new stack screen before we can navigate to the new screen. Alright, so over here it's going to be scan product. Okay, save it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate back to the home screen. Over here we need to inject the navigation prop like that, and whenever I click on the scan button, we will navigate to the scan product screen like that. Alright, save it. Now let's see if it works. Okay, cool. Next, we can then work on the UI layout for the camera screen before we work on the camera itself. Alright, so go back to your source code, navigate back to the scan product screen, and over here, I'll first create a new state to keep track of the selected option. Since we have two options over here, we have a scan QR code option, and also we have scan camera option. Alright, so over here, it's going to be constant selected option, set selected option, equals to react.useState, and the initial value is going to be constant dot scan product option dot camera. Alright, and after that, for the container view, I'm going to give it a bit of styling. So style equals to flex will be 1. So the first thing we are going to render over here is the header section, and for that we are going to render a new function called render header. Alright, and we are going to create this function over here, function render header, and we are going to return something. So for the header section, it's pretty straightforward. We have a button over here, an icon button, followed by the text component, and followed by 2 icon buttons on the right. Okay, so go back to your source code over here. For the render header function, we are going to first return a container view with a bit of styling. Flex direction is going to be row. Padding top is going to be sizes.padding multiplied by 2. Padding bottom is going to be sizes.radius. Padding horizontal is going to be sizes.padding. Align item is going to be center. Background color is going to be colors.light. And the Z index is going to be 1. Alright, now within the container view, the first thing we need is the close button, right? So for that, we need to render an icon button component. The icon is going to be icons.close, and whenever I click on this button, I'm going to navigate back to the previous screen, and we need to inject the navigation over here as a prop like that. Okay, save it. Okay, cool. So we have the close button in place. After that, we have the title section, right? So for this, we need to render a text component, and we are going to check if the selected option equals to constant dot scan product option dot camera. Then we are going to render scan camera, or else we will be rendering scan QR code. Next, we need to give the text component a bit of styling. So flex, it's going to be 1. Margin left is going to be sizes.radius, and the font is going to be H2. Alright, save it. Alright, so after the title section, next we have 2 more additional options, right? So for that, we need icon button as well. The icon is going to be icons.flash, and the icon style is going to be width 25, and the height is going to be 25 as well. After the flash icon, next we have icons dot question mark. For the container style, is going to be margin left sizes dot base, and for the icon style, same thing, it's going to be width 25 and height 25 as well. Alright, save it. Perfect. Alright, next we'll move on to the footer section over here. which basically consists of 2 text buttons. Okay, so go back to your source code, scroll down over here. After the header section, I'm going to render the footer section. Alright, and for that we need to render a new function called render footer, and we are going to create this function over here. So for the render footer function, we are going to return a container view with a bit of styling. Flex direction equals to row, height equals to 90, padding top equals to sizes.radius, padding horizontal equals to sizes.radius, and lastly for the background color is going to be colors.light. Now within the container view, we are going to render 2 text buttons. Alright, so over here, text button, the label is going to be scan QR code, content container style is going to be flex equals to 1, height equals to 55, border radius equals to sizes.radius, and for the background color, if the selected option equals to constants.scanProductOption.QR, then the background color is going to be primary, or else it will be light gray. Next, for the label style, the font is going to be H3, and for the color, if the selected option equals to constants.scanProductOption.QR, then the color is going to be secondary, or else it will be primary. Now whenever I click on this scan QR code button, I am going to set the selected option to constants.scanProductOption.QR, like that. Alright, save it. Okay, cool. Now don't worry too much about the position of the footer section for now, because the layout issue will be fixed after we added the camera section later on. Alright, next I'm going to simply copy this and paste it over here, and this time it's going to be scan camera. For the content container style, I'm going to set the margin left equals to sizes.radius, and the background color is going to be primary if the selected option equals to constants.scanProductOption.camera. Alright, and for the label style, the font is going to be H3 as well. Just that for the color, it will only be secondary if the selected option equals to camera, like that. Now whenever I click on the scan camera text button, I'm going to set the selected option to camera. Okay, save it. Perfect. Now if I were to click on these buttons over here, the title as well as the property of these buttons will be changed accordingly. Sweet. Alright, so we have completed the footer section. Next we'll move on to the camera section over here. But before we can do that, we'll need to first install a library called Vision Camera. So I'm gonna copy this, alright, and paste it in our terminal over here. After that, I'll cd into iOS and run part install. Alright, next there are a bit of configurations we need to do before we can use the camera API. Alright, so scroll down a little bit. Over here, we'll need to update the manifest. So for iOS, we are going to copy this. Since we are not going to use the microphone, I'm going to just copy the camera usage description and paste it in the info.plist file. Let's see how we can do that. Right, I'm going to copy this, go back to our source code, open up the iOS folder, open up the project folder. Over here in the info.plist file, I'm going to paste it right before the font over here, just like that. Alright, save it. Next, we'll need to do the same thing for Android. Alright, so over here, I'm going to copy the camera permission and paste it in the Android manifest file. Alright, I'm going to copy this. Head back to the source code, open up the Android folder, app folder, source, main, Android manifest.xml file. And I'm going to paste it over here after the internet permission. Alright, save it. Okay, so as of now, we have successfully installed the Vision Camera library. However, we will need to first load the app in an actual device before we can test the camera API. Alright, now that we have successfully loaded the app via an actual device, the next thing I'm going to do is that I am going to navigate back to the scan product screen over here. Alright, so I'm going to scroll to the top. Over here, I am going to import from React Native Vision Camera. Alright, and over here we are going to import camera and also use camera devices. Like that. Alright, and after that we will need to define a couple of constant variables over here. Right, so this section is for camera, like that. Constant devices equals to use camera devices. So what we are doing here is basically to get access to the device camera. Then after that, constant device equals to devices.back. So based on a list of camera devices that we retrieve over here, we are going to access to the back camera like this. Alright. Okay, and after that we will need to create a handler function to basically request for camera permission. Okay, so over here we have the handler section. So constant request camera permission equals to, we are going to make use of the use callback hook. Over here it has to be an async arrow function because we are going to make use of the await keyword later. Alright, so over here it's going to be an empty array like that. So the first thing we are going to do is to await for camera dot request camera permission, and we would like to capture the response in a constant variable. So constant permission equals to await camera dot request camera permission. So if the response, so if permission equals to denied, if the user denied the camera permission, I'm going to simply open the device setting page. So await linking dot open settings, like that. Alright, and I'm going to trigger this request camera permission function via the use effect hook. So over here, react dot use effect followed by the arrow function. Over here it's going to be an empty array. Whenever this screen is loaded, is that I'm going to request for camera permission, like that. Alright, save it. Okay, cool. So as you can see here, once the scan product screen is loaded, I'm going to trigger this function, request camera permission, which the app will then prompt this model to the user. Okay, so I'm going to simply accept the permission. And next we can then work on the camera section in the middle. So scroll down over here. After the header section, we are going to render the camera section. And in order to do that, I'm going to render a new function called render camera, like that. Alright, and I'm going to create this function over here. Function render camera. And I'm going to check if the device is now, which means if the device doesn't have a valid camera, for example, if you're connecting to a simulator, then I'm going to simply return an empty view with a bit of styling, of course. Alright, so style flex equals to 1. Or else, if I can detect the camera, then I'm going to return a container view as well, like that, where the flex should be equals to 1. Now within the container view, I am going to render the camera component, right? So for the camera component, the flex should be equals to 1 as well, so that it will take up the whole area. The device is going to be device is active equals to true, and we would like to enable the zoom gesture, like that. Alright, save it. Okay, perfect. So as you can see here, the camera component or the camera API is indeed working. Okay. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to focus on the scan camera option first. And now that I have the camera view in place, next I'm going to render an icon button over here. And whenever I click on this button, I would like to do two things. I'm going to first render an overlay searching or loading screen. Then after that, followed by the product view over here, both with animations, of course. Alright, let's see how we can do that. Alright, so after the camera component, over here we are going to render a scan button, right? So I'm going to check if the selected option equals to constants dot scan product option dot camera. Then I am going to render a container view with a bit of styling. Position is going to be absolute. Align items will be center. Bottom is going to be sizes.padding. Left is going to be 0 and right is going to be 0. Now within this container view, we are going to render an icon button component. where the icon equals to icons.scan. For the container style, height should be equals to 60, width equals to 60 as well. Border radius is going to be 30. Align items will be center. Justify content will be center as well. And lastly, the background color is going to be colors.light. Next, for the icon style, width is going to be 50, height is going to be 50 as well, and the tint color is going to be primary. Alright, save it. Okay, cool. So we have successfully rendered the scan icon button over here. So whenever I click on the scan button, I would like to render an overlay searching screen over here. Alright, so scroll to the top. Over here, we are going to import from Moti, and we need Moti view as well as use animation state. Alright, so over here, after the camera section, we are going to define the Moti animation state. So over here, it's going to be Moti section, constant loader animation state equals to use animation state. And over here, we are going to pass the config over. So for the loader, we basically have two different states. We have start and we have stop. So for the start state, I'm going to set the opacity to 1. Whereas for the stop state, I'm going to set the opacity to 0. Next, within the use effect hook, I'm going to set the initial state for loader animation to be stop. Alright, so it basically means that I would like to have the loader to be hidden when the scan product screen is first loaded. Alright, so in the use effect hook, I'm going to get access to the loader animation state, and I would like the state to be transitioned to stop, just like that. Alright, so this one's going to be animation section, and here it's going to be permission section. Okay, next I would like to navigate to the camera component over here. After the camera component, I would like to render the loading or searching view. So for this, we are going to render a multi-view component where the state is going to be the one we defined earlier, which is loader animation state. Next, I would like to give it a bit of styling. Position is going to be absolute. Top is going to be 0, left is going to be 0, right is going to be 0, and the bottom is going to be 0 as well. For the align item, it's going to be center. Justify content is going to be center. And lastly, for the background color, it's going to be colors.dark60. Alright, now within this multi-view component, we are going to render a text component. Here it's going to be searching, and we would like to give it a bit of styling where the font is going to be H2 and the color is going to be light. Alright, save it. Next, I would like to render this loading or searching view whenever I click on this button over here. Alright, so scroll down for the scan button component. Over here, we need the on-press prop, right? So whenever I click on the scan button, I would like to get access to the loader animation state, and I would like to transition to start, okay? And then I would like to hide the loader. I'm going to set the loader animation state to stop after 2 seconds, alright? So I'm going to do that by using set timeout. So set timeout followed by the arrow function. I'm going to put this within the set timeout clause. Over here, I'm going to wait for 2000 milliseconds, which is equivalent to 2 seconds. Alright, save it. Now, whenever I click on this scan button over here, right, we should be able to see the loader for 2 seconds. Perfect. Alright, now that we have the loader in place, next we'll be working on the product view over here. So go back to the source code, scroll up. Over here, after the loader animation state, we are going to define the state or the animation state for the product view as well. So constant product animation state equals to use animation state. And for the config, we are going to have 2 different states for the product view. So we have height and also we have show. So for the height state, we are going to set the opacity to 0, and we are going to set the translate Y to -10. Whereas for the show state, I'm going to set the opacity to 1, and I'm going to set the translate Y to 10. And on top of that, I'm going to import React Native Shadow 2. Alright, so over here we are going to import the shadow component. This is so that we can wrap the product view container with the shadow component. Alright, next I'm going to navigate back to the camera section over here. After the scan button, we are going to render the product section over here. Alright, so for this, we are going to render the Moti view component first, where the state is going to be product animation state, and for the style, position is going to be absolute, top is going to be 0, left is going to be 0, right is going to be 0, height is going to be 120, padding vertical is going to be sizes.radius, align items will be center, and lastly for the Z index, it's going to be 1. Alright, now within the multi-view component, we are going to wrap the whole thing with shadow component. And since the product view should be clickable, we are going to wrap it within the touchable opacity component. So over here, after the shadow component, we are going to render touchable opacity, give it a bit of styling. Flex is going to be 1, flex direction is going to be row, width is going to be sizes.width minus, in bracket, sizes.padding multiplied by 2. This is so that we can get the full width of the product view. Okay. Next, the align item should be equals to center. Padding horizontal is going to be sizes.radius. Border radius is going to be sizes.radius. And lastly, for the background color is going to be colors.light. Now within the touchable opacity, the first thing we have is the image itself, right? Oops. Okay, so go back to the source code. Over here, we are going to render the image component first. So here we have the image component, where the source is going to be images.luggage01, like that. And for the style, width is going to be 60, height is going to be 60, and the border radius is going to be 30. After the image component, we are going to render the product name as well as the SKU code over here. Alright, so after the image, we have product name and SKU code. Okay, so for this section, we are going to render a container view with a bit of styling. The flex should be equals to 1, and margin left should be equals to sizes.radius. Alright, now within the container view, we are going to render two text components. So for the first text component, I'm going to give it a random name. Okay, give it a bit of styling as well. The font should be equals to H3, and the color is going to be primary. Next, for the second text component, I'm going to give it a random SKU code as well. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Give it a bit of styling. The font should be equals to body 4, like that. Alright, so after the product name and SKU section, next we have the price section over here. Alright, so over here we have the price. So for this, we can simply render a text component, give it a bit of styling. The font should be equals to H3, and the color is going to be primary. Alright, over here I'm going to simply render some figures like that. Alright, save it. Okay, cool. So as you can see here, the product view is indeed in place. However, I would like to set the product animation state over here. I would like to set the product animation state. The initial state for this should be equals to height. Alright, save it. Okay, cool. Now the product view is hidden when the screen is first loaded, and we will only render the product view after the loader has disappeared. Alright, so scroll down, navigate to the scan button over here. After we transition the loader animation state to stop, next we are going to get access to the product animation state and transition it to show like that. Alright, save it. Now if I were to click on the scan button over here, we should be able to see the loader for 2 seconds, and right after that the product view will be shown at the top over here. Okay, let's see. Sweet. Alright, so that's all for the scan camera option. Next we'll move on to the scan QR option over here. So for the scan QR option, we are going to split it into 2 different parts. We are going to first take a look at how we can render a frame like this by using SVG. And once we have done that, we are going to take a look at how we can configure our vision camera library so that it will be able to detect and scan QR code. Alright, so go back to your source code, scroll to the top over here. I'm going to first import from React Native SVG, and for this we need SVG, we need def, we need rec, and also we need mask. Alright, next we are going to navigate back to the render camera function over here. Scroll down. After the scan button section, we are going to render the QR code section over here. So if the selected option equals to constants dot scan product option dot QR, then I'm going to return a container view like this with a bit of styling, right? So position equals to absolute, top equals to 0, left equals to 0, right equals to 0, and bottom equals to 0. Alright, now that we have the container view in place, next we'll be working on the frame over here by using SVG masking feature. Alright, let's see how we can do that. So within the container view, I'm going to render a new function called camera frame. Like that. Alright, and I'm going to create this function over here. So function, camera frame, and over here I'm going to return the SVG component, alright, where the height of the SVG container is going to be 100% and the width is going to be 100%, which basically means that we would like to have the camera frame to sort of like cover the entire area over here. Okay, now within our SVG component, the first thing we would like to do is to define our mask. The SVG masking feature makes it possible to determine what part of the SVG shape that is visible and with what transparency, which will then allow us to construct a frame like this. Okay, and the mask tag must be nested within the def tag over here, like that. Okay. Alright, so for the mask, we will need to give it a unique ID, which is mask in this case. The X coordinate is going to be 0. The Y coordinate is going to be 0. The height is going to be 100%. Width is going to be 100% as well. So basically our mask will take up all the available space of our SVG container over here. Okay, so within our mask component, we are going to render 2 different rectangle components. So rect over here, we need another rectangle component over here as well. So for the first rect component, I'm going to set the height to 100%. I'm going to set the width to 100%. And I'm going to set the fill to white, like this. So what the first rect component does is that we are basically drawing the camera frame itself over here. Alright, the entire camera frame over here. And by setting the fill to white, it means that we would like this particular rect component to be opaque, which means not transparent. Alright, so next I'm going to render another rect component, and I'm going to set the X coordinate to 18%, Y to 30%, width is going to be 250, height is going to be 250 as well, and the fill is going to be black. So what the second rect component does is that we are basically drawing the smaller frame over here. So we position the X to be 18%, Y to be 30%, and from here we have a width of 250, a height of 250, and we set the fill to be black in color, which basically means that this particular rect component over here has to be transparent. Alright, now go back to your source code. Now that we have our SVG mask in place, next we are going to mask it to a rect component over here. Alright, so we need another rect component where the height is going to be 100%, width is going to be 100%. And for the fill, it's going to be RGBA of black color, so 0, 0, 0, and the opacity of 0.8, like that. And lastly, we are going to set the mask to URL mask, like that. So what we are doing here is basically we would like to have our mask, which we have already defined over here, and render it on top of this rect component with an opacity of 0.8. Alright, now save it. I'm going to navigate to the scan QR code option, and we should be able to see the camera frame like this. Alright, perfect. Okay, now that we have the frame in place, next I would like to render the border as well over here. So go back to your source code. After the rect component, I'm going to call this frame border, like that. And for this, I'm going to render another rect component where the X is going to be 18%, Y is going to be 30%, width is going to be 250, height is going to be 250 as well, stroke width is going to be 5, and the stroke color is going to be white, like that. Alright, save it. Sweet. Okay. Now that we have our frame in place, next we are going to take a look at how we can configure our Vision camera library so that our camera can scan and detect QR codes. Right, so in order to achieve that, we will need to first install a library called Vision Camera Code Scanner. Okay, so scroll down. Over here, I'm going to copy this. Go back to your source code, open up the terminal, and run npm install Vision Camera Code Scanner. You can use yarn if you want to, alright? Next, I'm going to cd into iOS and run pod install. Alright, next we will need to copy this. Alright, import React Native reanimated and paste it over here in our app.js file, like that. Okay, save it. And lastly, we will need to copy this. Okay, and paste it in the babel.config.js file over here. I'm gonna replace it like this. Alright, save it. Okay, next I'm going to reload the app. Alright, so I've just reloaded my app, and as of now, we should have already installed everything we need. So I'm gonna navigate back to the scan product screen, scroll to the top. Over here, I am going to import from Vision Camera Code Scanner, right? And for this, we need use scan barcodes and also barcode format. Alright, and after that, we need to define a couple of states for the barcodes. Okay, I'm gonna define it over here. So this section is for barcode. So first thing we need is a state to keep track of the barcode, right? So barcode set barcodes equals to react.useState, and the initial value is going to be an empty string. Next, we need to have a state to keep track whether or not the barcode has already been scanned. Alright, so constant is scan, set is scan equals to react.useState, and the initial value is going to be false. Next, we will need to sort of specify the type of barcode we would like to detect. Alright, so over here, constant frame processor barcodes, and over here we will need to make use of the use scan barcodes hook. So use scan barcodes, and for this example, we would like to detect barcode format dot QR codes. So what this means is that we are basically telling our Vision camera to detect QR code and assign it to the barcode state if there's any. Right, so I'm going to navigate to the camera component. Now over here, I'm going to set the frame processor to be equals to frame processor, which is the one we have just defined. And next, I would like to set the frame processor FPS to be 5. Alright, now there's still a couple of things we need to do. So scroll to the top. Over here, we will need to have another use effect hook to basically listen to the barcode states over here. Alright, so react.useEffect followed by the arrow function, and we are going to listen to barcodes. Now over here, if the selected option equals to constants.scanProductOption.qr, then I'm going to trigger another function called toggle active state. And I'm going to create this function over here. Alright, so constant toggle active state equals to async followed by the arrow function. And over here, I'm going to check if the barcodes is not null and the barcodes dot length is more than 0 and the isScan state is equals to false. Then I'm going to set the isScan state. I'm going to set the isScan state to true. Alright, now over here for the barcodes, I'm going to make use of the for each loop over here, followed by async. I'm going to get the scan barcode, followed by the arrow function. And over here, I'm going to check if the scan barcode dot row value is not equals to an empty string. Then I'm going to set the barcode to be scan barcode dot row value. And after that, I would like to get access to the product animation state and transition it to show. Alright, save it. Alright, now if I were to scan a QR code, we should be able to see the product view over here. Alright, let's see. Sweet. Alright, now we have successfully configured and set up our vision camera to be able to scan and detect QR codes. Next, all we need to do is to render the labels over here. Alright, so go back to your source code. I'm gonna navigate back to the render camera function, scroll down, and the QR code section over here, after the camera frame component, we are going to render two different labels. Alright, I'm gonna call this label 1, which is basically this part over here. Okay, and after this we have label 2, which is this part over here. Alright, so for label 1, we are going to first render a container view like this, give it a bit of styling. Position is going to be absolute, top is going to be 15%, left is going to be 0, right is going to be 0, and align item is going to be center. And of course, within this container view, we are going to render the text component. And for this, we are going to render scan like that. Alright, give it a bit of styling. Font is going to be H1 and the color is going to be light. Alright, save it. Okay, cool. So we have label 1 in place. Next, for label 2, we are going to, same thing, render a container view as well. Give it a bit of styling. Position is going to be absolute. Top is going to be sizes.height multiplied by 0.3. Then after that, plus 220. Okay. Left is going to be 0. Right is going to be 0. And align item is going to be center. Okay, now within this container view, we are going to render text component. So over here, I'm going to render some text. Give it a bit of styling. Font is going to be body tree, and the color is going to be light. Okay, save it. Alright, so we have completed the scan QR code option. And now, whenever we scan a QR code, the product will be shown at the top, just like this. Perfect. Okay. Alright guys, and there you have it. We have finally completed the camera screens by making use of an awesome library called React Native Vision Camera. The full source code for this project is available on shop.byprogrammers.com, and I have included the link in the description below. On a side note, please do let us know which screen would you like to see next. Thanks for watching guys. So if you liked the video, we'll be more than happy if you can give it a thumbs up, comment, share it to your friends, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. I will see you guys in the next video. Happy coding. Peace.